But at any point, please jump in. If you have a question, comment, please feel free to jump in and unmute or write in the chat box. Okay, so time. Let's speak about time for a second. Jewish time. So time is dynamic. It's not something that happens to us or something that we're a slave to. In Judaism, especially Kabbalah, time is a dynamic that has its own energy. I'll give you an example, or I'll tell you a story. Some of you have heard this story before, but I think it's super relevant. There was once a king who was traveling with his son, and they were traveling in the royal coach. And along the way, the son, the child, the prince says, "I'm thirsty." And they realized that they didn't take water. You ever on a trip, on a road trip or something, on a hike, and you realize, whoops, forgot the water. Even the king and the royal officers sometimes forget the water. So what happens? So it's now a crisis. Now you need water, and it's a whole thing. So what happens is, hey guys, I got an audience here. So what happens is that the king says to his officers, what's the plan? We need water. So the head of the cavalry, the head of the royal cavalry says, we can take the fastest horses and we can gallop back to the city and get water and gallop back, and it's going to take only 35 minutes, but we'll get the water, the cavalry. Then you had the head of the Corps of Engineering said, we have another idea. I have another idea. And that is, we can dig right here, or we can take our engineering expertise and find a few places to dig and hopefully come up with water. But we think, based on all of the information that we've quickly assessed, we think that with a few tries we'll hit water. It's also going to take 30 minutes to an hour, but we think we can strike water right here. So what does the king say? What do you think the king says? Certainly if you know the story before this parable, you know the answer. What does the king say? Unmute yourself if you know what the king said. Which option? Send the horses or dig? What do you think? Send the horses, number one. Dig, number two. What do you think?
Both.
Both, okay. One. In the example, the king says dig. Why? Because if you send the horse, you'll only have water in this moment. But if you dig and you come up with a well of water and you mark it, then this is not only going to help my son, the prince, but for all future travelers that get thirsty in this place, they will be able to access this well that was dug and this channel, this access to water. Make sense? Yes? Okay. So I think it was the Baal Shem Tov or the Alter Rebbe, either the founder of the Hasidic movement or the Chabad Hasidic movement, who explained that this is the deeper significance of the Jewish holidays. Every Jewish holiday is like a well along the road, the path of the year, and each one is marked, and it says, here is Rosh Hashanah, here is Yom Kippur, here is Sukkot, here is Chanukah, here is Purim, here is Passover, Pesach, here is Shavuot. Every holiday has a mark and has a well, and as we go through, as it is in space, so too in time, as we go through time, we encounter these wells of water, of life-giving nourishment, of energy and inspiration that can inspire a holiday. Therefore, it's more than just a moment in which we encounter something or we're going through something. There's an energy, there's a brand new energy that we can access. And every holiday has a unique energy. It's kind of like, different wells, different flavor waters. And if you go into the store, you'll notice every manufacturer has its, or whatever, every company brand has its water. This is from this mountain, and this is from this spring, and this is from this municipal tap that we called something fancy. Whatever, everyone's got its, that was a joke. Everything's got its shtick, its thing, its flavor. The same thing is true with the holidays. So here's the deal. We're right now in the month of Elul. Elul just started at the end of last week. Thursday, Friday was Rosh Chodesh. The first day of Elul was Friday. Yesterday was day 2 of Elul. Today is day 3 of Elul. We have another 26 days before Rosh Hashanah. I don't mean to get anyone nervous here. No, but we have another several weeks until Rosh Hashanah. But there's an energy. This is not just the 12th month of the year, the last month of the year before Rosh Hashanah. There's an energy that El holds. So the great sages of old in the good books tell us that the month of El has a very special energy. And the energy is associated with the idea of love, which means, per the theme of our series, right? This series is called Learning How to Love. So it's kind of fitting that we're talking about this time of year, because this is the theme of the month of El. El is the month of love. And there's a beautiful code in the name Elul. El is not just the name of it's not like August. Why is it called August? Why is the month of August called August? Probably named after some Augustus Flavius Spartacus, right? If that's not his legal name, it's whatever. Some sort of Augustus Schmerel. In Hebrew, there's significance, not just named after some dude or some mythical thing, but it has spiritual significance, Kabbalistic significance. So let's talk about Song of Songs, because that is one of the secret meanings of the month of El. Song of Songs is a book penned by King Solomon, and it's a love story. You read the book, it's a beautiful love story. It's actually a very dramatic love story between a man and a woman. And you would think, you read it, it's like, okay, there's a place in the bookstores for these types of novels, but why is it considered one of the 24 holy books of Judaism? Because from the beginning, we knew that King Solomon wasn't just writing a romance novel. He was writing a book about our relationship with God. And that as we read about the story of this relationship, it actually parallels our journey with our relationship with God and God's relationship with us. Early beginnings, first loves, commitment, heartbreak, devastation, betrayal. It's all happened on both sides, right? It's all happened. Look at our history. It's our story. And so the book Song of Songs is the greatest. It's an incredible love story, but more than that, it's the incredible dramatic story of our love affair with God. So I'm going to tell you 4 words. Probably the most famous 4 words of Song of Songs. At least the way they've been, adopted and adapted for all of us. You ready? 4 words. Ani, lidodi, vidodi, li. Boom. That's it. Ani lidodi means I am to my beloved. Vidodi li, and my beloved is to me. Now, let me give you a better English version of that. That's the literal translation. It means I love, or I am dedicated to my beloved, and in return, they are. You know what? I'm actually going to write. Adina Malka's asked me to write it in the chat. I'm actually going to get a whiteboard going and write out the letters for you so that you can see it, because we're about to get a little bit deep with this. So, but I'll get there in a second. So ani lidodi, vidodi li. You know what? Let me just do it in the chat quickly. Ani lidodi, vidodi li. Ani lidodi, vidodi li. Boom. I did it in English. We're going to look at the Hebrew in a second. Ani lidodi, vidodi li means I am to my beloved, and reciprocally, my beloved is to me. Now, if we stop right there. Oh, one more thing. The reason why this is significant is because the first letters of those 4 words, ani, aleph, lidodi, lamed, vidodi, vav, li, lamed, it spells the word elul. The acronym, the first letters of those 4 words, ani, lidodi, vidodi, li, spell the word elul this month of the year. It's not by chance, it's not by coincidence, it's not by magic, it's by design. Every month, every season, every moment in time in Judaism, and the Jewish calendar, is highly significant. Highly significant. These are wells and well springs of water, of nourishment, of energy, of meaning that you and I can access as we go through them, as we pass through a time of the year. It's not just, it's another month. It's an energy. There's an energy field that we're going through that if we pay attention, we can access. So what's the energy that we're accessing? We're accessing the energy of love and relationships and connection. But let me explain what that means. Ani ledodi v'dodi li means I first demonstrate my love for the other, and then reciprocally the other demonstrates love for me. This echoes another beautiful quote from King Solomon. King Solomon wrote Song of Songs. He also wrote, Kamayim hapanim alpanim kain lev ha'adam va'adam. Just like water reflects the face of a human being, so too does the heart of a human being reflect the heart of another. Which means if you go to a lake, right? Go walk to the edge of a lake and you bend down and you look at the water. What will you see? You'll see your reflection. And who is it? It's you. It's whatever face. Now we could also talk about a mirror, but this is more natural. The face that you show to the water is the face that's reflected back. King Solomon says the same thing is true with relationships. The heart, not the face, but the heart that you show to the other is the heart that they show to you. In other words, the feelings that you bestow upon, that you give, that you grant, that you bless the other with, are the feelings that come back to you. So the first message of El, Ani ledodi, v'dodi li, the first message, and it's a powerful one, is in relationships, whether it's talking about a divine relationship or human relationships, here's the question. What energy do you want? And based on how you answer that question, then ask yourself the next question, what am I doing to initiate that? What am I doing to get that started? I have a different cup today. Right? What am I doing? You're the best. By the way, this is a message for all of you. This is a message. Y'all are the best. L'chaim. I have a few of the IJA mugs. I see some of the In-Town Jewish Academy mugs. I have a few of them. But we used them well yesterday, and whatever. They're not yet, I decided to take a new one instead of cleaning it out. Anyway, getting back to the discussion. Adina Malka's got one. Ani ledodi v'dodi li means I am to my beloved, and in that way, my beloved is to me. The energy that I put out, the emotion that I put out, the love that I put out, is what I will receive in return. And this becomes our calling of responsibility in our relationships. The question is simple. I asked it before, I'll ask it again. Two simple questions. Number one, what do you want in this relationship? Number two, based on that, what are you ready to give in order to get that? With the understanding that the energy that you put out is the energy that you're going to get back in normative circumstance. The energy that you put out, the emotion, the love that you put out is what will be reciprocated back. So often, relationships get into what we would call a stalemate, where it's kind of like the old Westerns. Remember the old Westerns? Right? The Western with the old tumbleweed, the little saloon. Saloon? I got that right? Saloon? It's been a while. Okay, right, the saloon, a dusty road, and, two guys with guns, with 6-shooters, fighting about the fact that this town ain't big enough for the both of us type thing. And it's like a standoff. Well, that's resolved one way. Let's move off of that example because I'm not sure where that one goes. But getting back to our example. So often relationships get into what we would call a standoff. Standoff, where it's like two people that are standing and each one is like waiting for the other one to move first. And you know what? Elul tells us, Ani ledodi. I'm going to take the first step. Ani ledodi. And then v'dodi li. By the way, if both parties in the relationship take this message, that's also beautiful. Both are initiating, and that's even better. But in general, we should never be We should never let our ego, because that's really what it is, our ego get in the way to say, no, they need to make the first move. No, because they're the one that 30 years ago, that was them, and therefore, whatever, they got to make the first move. And I'm just going to stand with folded arms and wait. No matter how long it takes, I'm right, they're wrong. And if I go and I initiate the relationship and I initiate the reconciliation, then that's me losing, or that's me showing weakness, or whatever it is. This is what our ego tells us. Our ego would have us destroy ourselves and destroy our relationships under the guise of, oh yeah, but you have to be, you shouldn't be the one to do that, or they need to be the one to do that. It's crazy. Doesn't make any sense. Objectively, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, when we're in it, it makes all the sense in the world. Of course it makes sense. Absolutely. How dare they? And I will never. That's when we're entrenched in the situation. But objectively, it doesn't make any sense. That's why when you see it with someone else, you're like, what's the big deal? Just go, and who cares if they're wrong? Say I'm sorry, and that's it. What's the big deal? How hard is that? Because objectively, it's actually not a big deal, and it's actually what's right is right, and these are the steps that are needed. The month of Elul reminds us what's really important. And the main thing, as Covey once wrote, the main thing is to keep the main thing, and not to get distracted by, this is my addition, not to get distracted by the stuff that's not the main thing. So what's the main thing of Elul? Ani lidodi vidodi li. I am to my beloved, and then my beloved is to me. In other words, I take responsibility for my relationships. If I want them to look a certain way, then I am going to put that energy out into the relationship. If I want to get something from the relationship, then I am going to put out that which I wish to get into the relationship. Now, does that guarantee that it's going to be reflected back? With water, it's easy. Because water doesn't have bechira chavshis. Water doesn't have free choice. So when a mirror, right, the face that you show is the face you're going to get back. If you're smiling into your mirror and you get a frown back, I would take it back to the store. It's just me. I'm just saying, I would say defective mirror that does not work. I got the mirror, I'm happy, and it's sad, and there's something weird here. Maybe that's a plot for a Stephen King novel. Here's the deal. When it comes to other human beings, yes, there is a little wiggle room. When I say wiggle room, all bets are off. When I say all bets are off, it means sometimes it doesn't exactly work as planned, which means that we could put out a certain energy. We could shine a certain face, heart, emotion, right, energy, and it might not actually be perfectly reflected back because the other is dealing with their own stuff or struggling in their own way or has their own challenges, whatever. Because they're human as well. That's entirely possible. But it's a Jewish belief that, number one, the fact that the other doesn't take away from our responsibility to do what we need to do. Number one. Number two, our belief is that with consistent effort, then we will see the results. So the point is like this. It's not dodi li va'ani lo. It's not, well, first my beloved has to be for me, and then I'll be theirs. No, Elul is the other way around. Elul is Aleph Lamed Vav Lamed. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I'm going to start writing this down onto the screen because I want to show you something else related to this. Oh, and so what's the point? What's the point of all this? This is the time of year. This is the time of year to work on our relationships on whatever level. Whether it's parents and children, spouses, friends, neighbors, cousins, who knows? It doesn't matter. Whatever relationship it is, right? Ani ledodi v'dodi li. This is all about learning how to love. And from the beginning, which we started almost a year ago now, right? We've had, I think, 37, 38 sessions. From the beginning, we've said that the greatest obstacle to love, the greatest impediment to healthy relationships, the greatest divider of people is the ego. That's it. It's straight up the ego. And the ego says, no, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to go first. Comes along the month of Elul and says, what month is it? Elul. Are you listening to what Elul is saying? Ani ledodi v'dodi li. You start. When I say you start, I mean me start. I mean, all of us should say, let me rephrase it. All of us should say, I need to start first. Ani ledodi, and then v'dodi li. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Not share the screen. I'm going to pull up a whiteboard because I want to show you some Hebrew. Now, if you are, let me make this big. Okay, if you're proficient in Hebrew reading, so this will be a little bit easier. If not, I'm going to make it as understandable as possible. I'm going to write the phrase Ani ledodi v'dodi li on the board. Okay, and it's a little bit hard. This is my disclaimer. It's a little bit hard to write on a vertical screen. I'm gonna give it my best shot. Okay, that says Ani ledodi. That was a little close to each other. Okay, Ani ledodi v'dodi li. Aleph nun yud ani, I ledodi am I to my beloved, v'dodi and my beloved is li is to me. What I want to do is actually undo that last little bit because it's too close. I want to make sure that you see where the words separate. So ani ledodi v'dodi li. Spell the word Lol. That's the month. Elul. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. That's it. Now, as I said before, this tells us the arc or the methodology of the relationship where we're meant to start first. We. In other words, us. Us, like literally us. We're meant to be the ones that are getting this the process started. The energy that we reflect to the other, or that we shine to the other, will be reflected back to us. But here's something else that's cool. Because it's all about love. It's all about relationships. Oh, and by the way, it's the same thing in our relationship with God. I should mention, it's not just about human relationships. It's also about our relationship, maybe even primarily about our relationship with God. That it's about us initiating that closeness with God. Come the month of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, it's kind of like there's a formality there are holidays, and we respond to the call of the holidays. It's this month in which we are meant on our own to step out and to connect with God. Now, let's talk a little bit numerology. We have a gematria numerology class that we do on Monday nights. And I was thinking, I should probably save this for that, but I can't, I literally can't hold myself back. So I'm going to do this. Numerology. Every letter, here's the short version of this. Every Hebrew letter is associated with a number. Okay, so Aleph is 1, right, because it's the first letter. Lamed is associated with 30. Vav is 6. And Lamed is 30 again. So 30 plus 6 plus 30 plus 1, right? Let me erase this, hold on, not to confuse anybody. Okay. 30 plus 6 plus 30 plus 1 equals, wait, hold on, equals, wait, there we go, equals 67. Correct? You guys see that? Somebody, I have the screen on. Somebody unmute yourself to indicate that this makes sense, what I just did.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Beautiful. So the gematria, the numerology of Elul is 67. Fantastic. Good. What does that mean? Well, for those that are in the numerology course, you know that there's another way to take the number, to deal with the number 67, and that is you take the 6 and 7, you add the 2 together.
13.
And you get 13. Well, what's amazing about the number 13 is that 13 is the numerology of another Hebrew word. I'm going to write it over here. Ava, which is love. 1, 5, 2, and 5. You can do the math, and I already know the answer, and you already know the answer at this point. Aleph is 1, Hey is 5, Bet is 2, Hey is 5. 5 plus 2 plus 5 plus 1 equals, you guessed it, 13. 13 is the same as Elul in Mispar Katam Mispari. You don't have to know that phrase, The numerology of Elul, 67, 6 plus 7 is 13, is the same as Ava, which is love. This month, oh hey Ellie, Sollish, how's it going? This month is a month of love. That's the bottom line. And the name Elul, I'm going to stop sharing now because I think y'all got that. The name Elul tells us the secret of love. How do we get the love going? And that is, we take responsibility and we initiate. We don't wait for the other. We don't stand on ceremony. We don't stand, arms folded in a standoff. No, we take the initiative. Ani l'dodi v'dodi li. So if we see, if we see tension, oh hey, good morning. Come say hi. If we see tension, say hi, Reeves. There you go.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
The princess says hi. Hello. Okay, love you. Down you go. What we want to see in the relationship, we should not let the ego get in the way. Now, the email that I wrote before Shabbos about this class, the title of the class was Opposites Attract. And I asked the question, tried to ask the question at least, is that really true? Do opposites really attract? I mean, we say opposites attract, but at the end of the day, opposites are opposites. And opposites, that idea, the modality of opposites could get a little bit, it could get hectic. I mean, that's the nature. The nature is that it could get volatile when you have opposites, opposite forces. It's things could collide. So how does this work? How do opposites really attract? Now, I'm not explaining how it works in human relationships, necessarily in all cases, why opposites attract or don't attract. But I want to focus for a moment on the way this works above in the spiritual realms, and then see if we can take some lessons and bring it back down to the physical world, into our own life and our own experience. There's a phrase in our prayers. It's at the end of every single Kaddish and every single Amidah, and it's one of the it's usually sung with a tune in many synagogues, and it goes like this. And you can feel free to unmute yourself, and we can all sing along. I'll give you the words so you know what I'm talking about. It's Oseh Shalom Bimromav. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yimru, Amen. Now, what I love about Zoom is that every computer, every Zoom is a fraction of a second, like not perfectly synced, which makes the choir that much beautiful because it's a little bit off. But listen, where the heart is, that's where the true harmony lies. But what does that
mean? What does that
I'm about to explain it. We're going to look at it Kabbalistically. Oseh Shalom B'Mromav means he, referring to God, he who makes peace B'Mromav, above, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, should make peace for us below. Ve'al Kol Yisrael, and upon all Israel, V'imru Amen, and let us say Amen. And so what we're saying is, God who makes peace above should give us the blessing of peace below for our community, for all the communities, and let us say Amen. It's a beautiful, beautiful prayer. It's basically a request for divine help with peace. Now, so by the way, this should clue us in to the importance of shalom, peace. Shalom is, without peace, we got nothing, right? I mean, you can't enjoy any blessing without peace. So again, Oseh Shalom B'Mromav means he who makes peace above. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, should make peace, or should make peace for us. V'yal Kol Yisrael, and for all Israel. V'yimru Amen, and let us say Amen. What does it mean that God makes peace above? That's what the Kabbalists ask. It's a beautiful, beautiful phrase, but what does it actually mean? He who makes peace above? What is there like Is there a war that's happening in Shemayim, in heaven? Like, what does that mean that God is making peace above? What kind of tension or friction is there that God is then making peace? What does that even mean? So here's what Kabbalah says. Kabbalah says that yes, there are different angels. Now, we don't have enough time. Maybe we'll have to do a class on angels, just on angels. We actually did a course on the supernatural, taught by Mrs. Nomi Freeman, back BC, before Corona. But the short version is there are different types of angels. Different machanot, camps of angels. So one camp is called the angels of Michal, the camp of Michael. Then there's the camp of Gabriel. Kabbalah explains that what distinguishes the camp of Michal from Gabriel, why are they different angels, what's going on? Michal, those angels are all about kindness and mercy and love. And the angel Gabriel, or the angels in the camp of Gabriel, are all about Gevura. Oh, so those are chesed, the right side, right? The love, the kindness, the generosity, the giving, right? And then you have the angels Gabriel, they're on the left side. And they're all about the judgment, right? Discipline. A little bit of a harsher type of angelic feel. Stephanie, go ahead. Okay, so basically, there are different angels. And the different angels correspond to the different sefirot, the different energies. And so you could have two angels, or two camps of angels, that are diametrically opposed. One exists in this world, or this modality, and the other exists in the other modality. One is love, one is discipline. One is giving, one is withholding. Each angel has its place. But how do they come together? How do they work hand in hand? Could be cliques, and different personalities. People kind of congregate amongst, they say birds of a feather flock together. So the angels also, they might stick to their own camp. So how can they ever work together? How do the angels of the camp of Michal work with the angels of the camp of Gabriel? How does it work? So Kabbalah says, this is what it means. Oseh shalom b'mamav. God who makes peace above. What does that mean? When do those angels get together? It's when they stand before God. In other words, in the face of something greater and more transcendent, they shed their own ego. And when they shed their own ego, then they're ready to get together. In other words, as long as they're stuck, entrenched in their own identities, so then they identify, I am this chesed, you're that gvura, as long as they identify in their own particular way of being, they can't get along with each other. Why? Because they're so different, they're diametrically opposed, they're opposites, and they're not attracting. They're opposites, full stop. And opposites are opposites. So they don't get along. They might wave to each other when they see them see the other on the other side of the street, but that's it. What connection do I have with somebody from that camp, from that side of the tracks? Nothing, garnished. I don't associate with those people, right? I'm Michal, you're Gabriel. We have nothing to do with each other. But when they're all called in front of the king, when the angels stand before God, then what happens? In the face of something much greater than their own individuality, in the face of something transcendent, they shed their particularisms, they shed the pettiness, the petty definitions, they reconnect with their core. They're both angels of the King of Kings, God, and on that level, there can be shalom, peace. This is what it means, Oseh shalom bimromav, that it's God who makes peace with the angels, bimromav, with the celestial beings above. How does God create peace? through a manifestation of divine presence greater than the particular levels of the individuals. To give you a very human example, you can have people from different walks of life that would never get together, but are dancing together or singing together in a concert. People that in their own particular lives would not get along, but in the face of something greater, in other words, in a greater moment, there's unity amongst everybody in the crowd. Now, once the lights go down or something, once the music stops, band goes off stage and everyone goes back to the parking lot, then the particularisms come back, and then it's all bets are off. But in that moment of that shared experience, what I would call, again, not necessarily, again, I don't want to, not necessarily like a divine experience, not necessarily a divine experience, but what I would say like a higher experience, right? Something that's about something greater, if you will, than the individuals, right? So in that space, there can be unity amongst opposites. Why? Because there's a higher dimension that brings them together. Does this make sense what I'm saying? Yes? About the higher force that can bring people together? Another example is, people unite for a common cause or for a greater cause. Something, I'm thinking like 9/11, some people that are all at each other's, a lot of intensity and, friction. But then something big happens, and suddenly people are getting along, and people are looking out for each other and caring about each other, right? Or even now, this coronavirus, you have people are being there for each other, and this obviously fades because at a certain point in time, we go back to what we would call like normal. Things go back to normal, and the bigger experience kind of fades away, or that itself becomes normal, and then all the particulars come out, and everyone's got, well, I'm this, you're that, and therefore maybe we don't hang out together. But in the space of something much greater, there can be a unity that's brought out from different parties precisely because there's something bigger than the both of them. So, in other words, there are otherwise turf wars. Let's go back to the angels. Michal says, hey, we're Michal, you're Gavriel. No, we're Michal, like we're much better. Gavriel says, no, we're better than you. So there could be like turf wars on that level. But when you're standing in front of the king, I think it's pretty clear, right, who's the boss. It's pretty clear what the real deal is, and all of the smaller players, so to speak, the angels, they get lost in a good way, right, in this great divine experience. Therefore, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that oftentimes unity is born of something transcendent, something greater that takes the two parties and lifts them up to a place where all of the divisiveness, all of the distinctions, all of the causes for disunity are left just in the dust. And so that's the message. Oseh shalom b'mamav, the one who is making peace above, something bigger that's bring the angels together, because in the face of God's truth, the particulars don't mean anything. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu should also make peace for us. In other words, this is not maybe it is a request, but I don't believe the request is for some God to perform a magic trick and implant peace within us. Although that would be nice, and maybe that is what we're asking on some level. But the way I understand it is, it's actually, as we're articulating it to God, we're actually speaking to ourselves, and we're saying we know how it works. We know how it works above, and therefore we're committed to making this work below. That we should all embrace something higher, a higher commitment, and when we do so, then we'll have a connection. Does that make sense what I just said? When each of us embraces a higher commitment, that's the ultimate connector. What's the connection? The higher commitment, which explains the secret of the intention of marriage. What's the intention of marriage? So famously, a Jewish wedding happens under a chuppah, right? What is a chuppah? A chuppah is, we actually spoke about this recently. It has open walls, but a roof on the top. And I explained, I think, a week or two ago, either last week or 2 weeks ago, I explained that the message is that we're meant to remember there's something above. What does that mean? It's based on a teaching from the Talmud. Let me go back to the whiteboard. A lot of Hebrew here. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to clear everything. Okay, and start again. So here's the chuppah. The chuppah, right? Poles. Look, if we were drawing this in three-dimensionally, you would see it like a little rotator. You could see all four. This is looking at it just, side view. It's got the top, it's got poles, but the poles really are open, so they're not closing on the sides. It's got the top. And the idea is that that both parties are meant to have something higher that each are dedicated to, with the understanding, a simple understanding, that as long as both parties are focused on themselves, then it's going to be very difficult to have shalom, to have peace. Because at the end of the day, two people are very often opposites in many different ways. Right? The chassan, the kala, the bride and the groom, the husband and the wife, are very often opposites. Not just different, but opposites in many different ways. And in order to foster peace, right, it can happen at many different levels, but the highest level would be bringing together the opposites under, within something greater than the both of them, which evokes, again, a Talmudic statement, and I'm going to draw it out right here. I'm going to draw out, hold on, the Hebrew word for man and woman. Ish, that's man. Isha is woman. So this is man, and this is woman. If you notice, they each of these words share common letters. The aleph and the shin. Right? This letter and this letter are common to both. But what's uncommon, in other words, the letter that is different is the yud and the hey. Yud and hey, as we know by now, are the first two letters of God's name. And we also know that yud corresponds to chachma and hey is bina. There's a lot of mystical secrets behind this, but at its core, yud and hey are the letters of God's name. So here's what the Talmud says. This is not even Kabbalah. This is the Talmud, although the Talmud has lots of secrets in it as well. The Talmud says that when God is in the relationship, when the two individuals are both committed not just to each other, but to something greater than self. I'm going to say that one more time. When the two parties in the relationship are committed not just to each other, but to something that transcends them both, in this case, to God, to the Yud and the Hey, then you can have a relationship that you can have both parties then surrender to something greater, and in that space of surrender, they're getting along and they're both working toward that common goal. But if you take God out of the relationship, if you take higher commitment, surrender out of the relationship, if you take the yud and the hey out of the relationship, you know what happens? Let me get the eraser on here. What happens if you erase the yud and the hey? You know what happens? You're left with aish and aish, aleph shin, and you know what that is? You know what aish is? These two letters, aish, fire. Aish is fire. You know what happens? What the nature of fire is? Fire burns. Fire is dangerous. Fire is destructive. Each party will, God Again, it's not a foreboding promise here, but what happens, what could happen is that each party will burn the other, will harm the other, hurt the other. There'll be mutual hurt both ways, and there will be fire and volatility. How do we ensure that the fire is not destructive fire, but rather healthy fire, which is passion? How do we ensure that? By putting the yud and the hey back in the situation, back in the relationship, by putting God's name back in the relationship. So what does this mean Kabbalistically? This is what the Talmud says. That when God is out of the relationship, then the couple is going to fight and it's going to blow up. But when God is in the relationship, then it's more sustainable, or it is sustainable. What does that mean? What does that mean Kabbalistically? What it means is, like I said a moment ago, when God's in the picture, what does that mean? It means that each party says there's something greater than my own feelings, my own ego. There's something greater than me, and frankly, there's something greater than the other, and there's even something greater than the collective of both of us, and that is God. That's like the chuppah. There's something greater, there's something above us both, not only individually, but even together. And we're both, individually and together, surrendered to something greater, to a greater cause, to a greater calling. And in the space of a greater calling, two opposites, two fires can unite. That's how it happens. Unity happens in the space of surrender to something greater than self. Because at its core, it's the ego that divides. It's the ego that creates the fire of destruction. And what creates the harmony? It's lack of ego. What greater way and more absolute way to create a lack of ego than surrendering to the greatest of all forces, which would be God. So when you have a couple, right, who are both committed to a higher calling, then does it matter? Again, I don't want to downplay the everyday stuff, but the little stuff will be seen in perspective. When Michal and Gavriel, when those angels are standing before God, when they're standing outside in the courtyard, it's like there's a beef. It's like, how dare you, this, that, or the other. Theoretically, right? I don't know what the angels talk about or how they roll. But there could be friction. And this is what the Kabbalah say. There is friction otherwise. But standing in front of the king, everyone forgets their issues. There's no issue in front of the king. My issue, you offended me. We're standing in front of the king. There's a bigger situation at hand. When we live our lives with a greater commitment in mind, when we live our lives with a sense of something greater and more transcendent in this reality, when we live our lives surrendered and committed to the ultimate truth and absolute truth, it makes navigating the relationships so much easier. This is going to be a theme. This is a theme that is very common throughout Kabbalah. The idea that I would call it the binary and then the essence. So you have, let's break it down. Okay, and we're going to do three numbers. You guessed it, 1, 2, and 3. 1, there's no tension because you only have 1. 2, now you have opposing forces, right? When you just had 1, so then you just had 1. So there's peace, but it's not really peace because you just had 1. So it's not really shalom. So you just had 1. 2 is not peace. 2 is friction, right? 2 is now a duality. It's a binary. It's this or that. You have two roads. They're not the same. What is 3? 3 is a state of shalom, a state of peace. 3 is the transcendent force that is able to bring together both parties that are opposite as one in the space of that greater light, that greater energy. This is the Kabbalistic understanding of the numbers 1, 2, and 3. The power of 3 is the power of peace. It's the power of shalom. So you have Michal and you have Gavriel and there's friction, and that's 2. Right? If you only had Michal, it would be fine, but there wouldn't be peace. It would just be one camp of angels. 2 camps of angels, now there's friction. The third element is the essence, the essential, the transcendent element of God that brings the 2 together. And this is the same mystery in human relationships, or the same dynamic in human relationships, that the couple is meant to move from 1 to 2, and from move to 2 to 3, right? So single is 1, a couple is 2, but the couple is meant to move from 2 to 3, to embrace the third element, the higher element within that, and within that space there can be unity between the two. The same thing is true in our lives. Whether you don't have to be married to the other person under a chuppah to be at peace with him. And this is also how to fulfill the mitzvah of loving your fellow as yourself, even the stranger that you've never met. But the fact you're able to drop a prejudice, you're able to drop a stereotype, you're able to drop a some sort of preconceived notion, that happens when we're committed to something greater than ourselves. When we're stuck in ourselves, we're stuck in our own self-definitions, we're stuck in our definitions of the other, we're stuck in our pettiness, we're stuck in our ego, and all the fights start from there. When we're able to get outside of ourselves and surrender to something greater than self, right? Like the example that I gave when you go to a concert and you're lost in the music, right? And I'm lost in the music and you're lost in the music, and that's what we have together. In that moment, we're both not in our own ego spaces. We're both letting go of our ego and surrendering to something, to an experience. Music, a concert, whatever it is, opera, that's greater than ourselves, right? That's the ultimate unifier. Oseh shalom b'mamav. God who makes peace above. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Let him also make peace down here below for us and all Israel, and let us say amen. And what it means is not necessarily the hocus pocus, right? Which is different than the hokey pokey, right? This is the hocus pocus. Not necessarily magic shalom, although we'll take it. If God's given it out, we'll take it. What it means is it's a call to action. Are you ready to surrender to something greater? Are you ready to put something greater above your own selfish, self-centered interests? Simple question. Are we ready to say that we're committed to making this world a better place, and not so concerned about who's the first one in the left lane in on the highway? Oh, they cut me off. They should have known that I was about to accelerate. Safety first with driving, by the way. So I'm not advocating dangerous driving and merging. But what I am saying is when we get upset that somebody got in front of us, we have to really ask ourselves the question, why? Why are we upset? Like, what's the big deal? Yeah? Let's just say, I have a divine calling that I really needed to get to really quickly, right? I had a higher purpose that I was really rushing to, and it messed me up. Maybe they also have a divine calling that they're getting to. And in that space, I think we can get together. So the point is that how do opposites attract? This is what we would call maybe the Kabbalistic gravitational field, right? It's in that space, in that third space, that the two spaces can come together. So in their own orbits, the two are colliding, they're fighting, there's friction. But in that third space, I wish I was more of an astrophysicist. I would probably be able to give an example from the solar system, an actual example of how this works, right? But in that third space, it's able to pull together both opposites. Or maybe it does work. Maybe it works. There's so many planets that orbit each other, and each one has its own spin, but there's something greater within which everything is dancing. Maybe yes, maybe no. Who knows? But what's the point? Opposites attract in a higher space. Let's jump inside to our text and let's read this inside. Because the context that we've been studying over the last few weeks, or the ideas that we've been discussing, are about Chachma and Bina. Chachma and Bina. Creative intelligence, analytical intelligence, and how they're so very different from each other. And how, although they, usually it goes Chachma and then Bina, there's usually a progression from one to the other. In fact, they're opposites. They're different to the point that they're actually opposites. And we're exploring how is it that they actually do work together. if there's such opposites, then wherein lies the capacity to work together? So today we're going to explore the third element, the higher element, the transcendent element, within which each of the two surrenders and can become one. Okay, so I'm opening up the PDF on my screen. I'll share it with you in a moment as soon as I get to the right chapter. Today, I think we are beginning chapter 26. 26. I'm teaching this numerology course, and I can't not think in terms of numerology right now. 26 is the numerology of the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, God's four-letter name. The Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is 26. By the way, speaking of Bina, right? Bina. What's the numerology of Bina? Chachma Bina, right? Bina is the Hey. But what's the numerology of Bina? Here, do the math with me. Bet is 2, right? Bet is 2. Yud is 10. Okay? It's 12. Nun is 50. Okay? 50 plus 12 is 62. Plus Hey is 5. What's 62 plus 5? 67. Do you remember which other word was 67? Elul. Folks, it's the month of Bina. The month of El is the month of Bina. We don't have time to explore this right now because it's not a numerology class and we have to get to our Kabbalah text. But maybe I'll speak about it tomorrow night in the final session of numerology. Adina Malka, that's why God created calculators. You don't have to do the work in your head. You can just pull up a calculator on your computer or Google it or whatever on your phone. Super easy peasy. The whole math thing, it's you just have to have the right right software and you're good to go. Okay, let's jump into our actual text. Where's the PDF here? Hold on. Got it. Chapter 26. Let's do it. Oh, that's very big. Easy to read, actually. Love this. I love this. Chapter 26. Accordingly, we can now see the coexistence. I love that word, coexistence. I love those bumper stickers. You ever see those bumper stickers, the coexistence one? That shows all the religious symbols? Okay, accordingly, we can now see the coexistence of a concept and its antithesis. In other words, we can now see how a thing and its opposite can coexist as one. When we look at Chachma and Bina, we can see the coexistence of a thing and its opposite. The point of Chachma, which is the abstract concept, is elucidated through the expansive comprehension afforded by Bina. Right? So you take an idea, which is like an abstract idea. You take a Chachma idea, and then you explain it through Bina. And they work hand in hand. They work together. Bina's explaining Chachma, Chachma's fueling Bina. It's a party. You would think that they're best friends. From little kids, you would think they went to nursery together, they went to preschool together, they went to kindergarten together, they went to grade school, middle school, high school, yeshiva. You would think they're best buds, Chachma and Bina. They work together. This expansion is by nature. However, he says, the expansion of Bina is by nature the opposite of the point of the Yud of Chachma. You would think Chachma naturally goes into Bina. Are you kidding me? You know what Chachma is? You know what Bina is? Chachma is a Yud. Chachma is a point. It's an akuda. It's a kernel. Chachma is ayin. It's nothingness. It's concealment, non-expansion. Nevertheless, back inside, this nothingness of Chachma can be unified and synthesized with Bina to become expanded into something with an individual identity. So you take the kernel, right? Not the kernel. You take the seed. You take the point. You take the yud, the nakuda of Chachma, which again, we shouldn't get lost in terminology. This means something. What does it mean? You have an idea. You have an abstract idea. You have the lightning flash goes off in your head. You have an intellectual inspiration, conceiving of a new idea, but it's not yet fleshed out. So you take that idea, and now in your Bina mind, in the power of Bina of your mind, now you expand it, break it down, make sense of it, etc. The fact that the idea of Chachma, the point of Chachma, can merge into Bina and then be expanded is astonishing. It defies logic. This potential of the idea of the Chachma merging and expanding in Bina, this potential is found within Chachma itself. It is the meaning of the phrase Havein b'Chachma, which means Bina. Havein is have Bina, not have, but experience Bina in Chachma itself. So there's an experience, there's an element of Bina, Havein. Bina is also b'Chachma with Chachma itself. Hence, Bina is included within Chachma itself, enabling it to be expanded and become unified with Bina. Chachma then, or thus, possesses an actual power of expansion and understanding the qualities which are the very opposite of its essential nature. Chachma contains a power that is its antithesis. Chachma contains its opposite within itself. It gives room for its opposite within itself. It allows for, it enables, it welcomes its opposite, its antithesis within itself. Similarly, and this is going to be the other way around also, Bina also gives space for Chachma, as we'll see. Similarly, when the revealed understanding of Bina becomes nothingness and concealment, I'll explain what this means in a moment, reaching the level of Koachma, the faculty of the unknown of the point of Chachma, i.e. Chacham bebina, it has become synthesized with something contrary to its own essence, as mentioned previously. We talked about this last week. This is the process by which you have an idea that now you do understand, and you did flesh out, and you have a 100-page report. And then somebody says, TLDR, give me the short version. You ever see that on the internet? TLDR, too long, didn't read? Yeah, it's like here's the bottom line, here's the summary. So you have a massive idea, expanded idea, and then you tell somebody, but here's the point. That's an undoing, or that's going the other way. That's going from expansion back to a core, back to a point. Bina has the ability to self-summarize. Bina has the ability to, after all of the details are fleshed out, after all of the expansion of the idea, Bina has the ability, as we explained last week, to once again bring it back into a point. That's what we call the summary. Or what I would say is the next steps. What's the bottom line? What are we doing about this? What's the plan of action based on this? Bottom line, what does this mean? That ability to say, or to articulate. Bottom line, what are we doing about this? What is this about? That's the chachma within Bina, and that's what this second paragraph says. Again, I'm just going to paraphrase it. When the revealed understanding of Bina then becomes nothingness and concealment. In other words, it comes back into, not nothingness, but it comes back into the point. That's what we call chacham bebina. That's the chachma within Bina, and that's a synthesis, once again, of its antithesis. Antithesis means the opposite. Synthesis, of course, means the joining of, and in this case, chachma joins with Bina. Bina joins with chachma. We have from both sides, we have a synthesis of the antithesis. I see somebody's asking in the chat something or something. That's not that. No. That is not the, well, that could be the moving it forward. Like the after you understand it, so now what, right? So the now what, the next step could be that, but before we actually get to the implementation of the plan, the idea that we can summarize within Bina, we can take all of the details and bring them back, right? Like I said last week, it's kind of like when the artist has a vision and then puts it out on the canvas, and then after all the details are out, then puts a title on the work. Right? The title is the Nakuda. That's the point. Right? That's like, or if you wrote a book, right? You wrote a book, and then you give a title to the book, or you give a title to a chapter. That's a form of chachma and bina, chacham bebina. That's bina itself saying, here's my point, here's the nakuda, here's the detail. This is not chachma, pure chachma. Pure chachma existed before the expansion, but it's not pure bina either, because bina by definition is the expansion. So you have the expansion, but you also have the point, and that's how that's the synthesis of the antithesis. Okay, let's continue inside. It's a very short chapter, but it packs a powerful punch. Let's continue. Thus, he says, the concealment of the point of chachma becomes revealed through bina, through understanding. So chachma is still the unknown. It's creative intelligence. Like, I have an idea, but it's not yet fully fleshed out. Right? It's not. Even to the person themselves, they don't fully understand it. So that concealment, then, the process of intellectual, working things through, then becomes revealed through bina, through understanding. And then the revealed understanding of bina becomes concealed once again to be a summary, which is the point, which becomes the concealment of the point of chachma. So chachma becomes bina, and then bina becomes chachma. You with me? You take a point and you expand it, and then you take the expansion and you summarize it. So your chachma became bina, your bina became chachma, and what does it all mean? This is the line. It's the coexistence of a concept and its antithesis. The way the human mind works, it's a beautiful model. It's a beautiful demonstration. It's a beautiful teacher of how to get along with your opposite, how to get along with your antithesis. Not just someone different or something different, but something absolutely opposite to you, diametrically opposed, like on the absolute other side of the fence. Chachma and bina are total opposites, but chachma becomes bina becomes chachma, and they work together. And here's the key point that I was sharing before. It must be concluded then, take a look at this. It must be concluded then that which unifies them and causes them to synthesize with one another must stem from a higher power than either of them. How do two opposites come together as one? In the space or in the face of something greater than both of them. This comes from the essential being, from the atzmus, that means the essence of God, from the essence of the infinite Ein Sof light, which is higher than both the level of concealment and the level of revelation. He is now dropping some of the most brilliant Kabbalistic wisdom on us, and I want to make sure that we're getting this, that everyone's getting this 100%. The mechanics of Chachma and Bina are concealment and revelation. Understand why. Let me explain why for a moment. And then we're going to get to the third dimension. 1, 2, and 3. 3 is the synthesis. Chachma, although Chachma represents the flash of insight, which sounds like revelation, and it is a revelation, nonetheless, relative to Bina, it's considered concealment. Because although you have something, you don't yet know what you have. You have an idea, you have a vision, but it's not fleshed out. You don't really know yet what is going to come of this vision. You have a vision of a vision, but you don't really know what it is yet. So relative to an idea that you know and get and understand, even you yourself, let alone others, Chachma is considered to be concealed, hidden. It's hidden, creative genius. It's still hidden. First senses of, I think I got something, but it's still hidden relative to Bina. Bina is revelation. Bina is, you got it now. You got it, you understand it, you can see it fully, you get the whole picture. Which means these are two states of an idea, or two states of awareness, or two states of intellectualism. One where the idea is hidden, one where it's revealed. But relative to the essence of the concept itself, hidden and revealed, they both pale in comparison to the essence itself. And in this case, he talks about the essence of God, because we're talking not only about Chachma and Bina in human terms, but Chachma and Bina on cosmic terms. In other words, in the world of Atzilut, in the world of emanation. So therefore, he's talking about how do Chachma and Bina come together? They come together in the space of a higher force, which is the essence, Atzmos, of Ein Sof, which is higher than both concealment and revelation. Concealment and revelation are like on and off. The idea is on, it's off, it's revealed, it's hidden. Those are particular qualities. But then there's an essence level. And relative to essence, they both are one. Let's finish off this paragraph and the sentence. Let's finish off the paragraph. In relation to Atzmos, which is the essence of God, they are equal. That's what I said before about the camps, the angels. Michal and Gabriel. You have all the angels, and everyone's different, and everyone's got its own way, its own flavor, its own way of being. But relative to something greater than itself, there's equality. They're equally nothing, or they're equally angels. In this case, on or off, they're both equally whatever relative to the essence of the source. Hence, this meaning, this essence of God, is the source of unity and mutual inclusiveness, the power to transform revelation into concealment and concealment into revelation. And here he drops the big idea. This paragraph, let's see if I can highlight it properly. Yeah. This paragraph is the key to understanding how opposites attract, understanding how our minds work, and ultimately understanding how we can get along with the other person, as I've explained, as we really did the first 2/3 of the class. How does Chachma and Bina, how do Chachma and Bina get along? Why is it that Chachma can merge into Bina and Bina can merge back into Chachma? That Chachma can be expanded in Bina and Bina can be summarized back into Chachma? How does that happen? It happens because both of them are humbled in the face of the essence. Both of them drop their own particularisms. They drop their own, I'm this, you're that, I'm not like you. They drop all the mishagasin, they drop all the pettiness in the face of something greater. They both ultimately sense the source of it all, which is God, the essence of the Ein Sof, the essence of the infinite, which is the essence of God. And in the space of essence, Chachma is not Chachma, Bina is not Bina. Certainly, they're not standing on ceremony with arms folded, with egos, saying, I'm not like you, you're not like me, we're not getting along. They don't do that. They don't stand like that. They don't posture like that in the space, in the face of God's essence. Rather, they're humbled. There's unity. There's mutual inclusiveness, because they realize that they all play the same role in the larger picture. And that's the key. When it comes to the angels, Michal and Gabriel, on their own, they're going to fight. Right? On their own, there's tension. But standing before God, there's unity. Why? Because they're surrendering to something that's greater than both of them, which in simple terms means at that point they realize that they're both on the same team. Standing before the King of Kings, they realize, yes, you may go about your angel work one way, and I may go around my angel work a different way. You may like that flavor of angel cake, and I may like that flavor, different flavor of angel cake. That was a joke. Nonetheless, we're both employed by the same boss, and we both share ultimately the same responsibility. And we both answer to the same authority. And that's the ultimate combiner. Because all the other stuff represents the details. On an essence level, there's only unity. So recognizing that, recognizing the bigger picture, is the greatest way to drop all of the petty fighting and all of the details that create friction. The same thing is what happens in our minds. How do Chachma and Bina get along? How does Chachma merge with Bina? The Chachma becomes understood in Bina, and the Bina becomes summarized back in Chachma. How does that work? Because both are not stuck in their own heads, so to speak. They're not stuck in their own way. I'm Chachma, I'm Bina, we're not getting along. They don't do that. Because both Chachma and Bina realize that they're just two ways of connecting with an idea, with a truth, not even an idea, with a truth that's greater than both of them. And they're both humbled in the space of divine wisdom, the gift of knowledge altogether. Whether it's I understand it Chachma in a vague way, or Bina in a particular way, these are all the details, different ways of connecting with wisdom, with ideas that are coming from the source of God. Knowing that can go a long way in breaking down the barriers that exist between the specific ways of understanding or knowing things. And it can bring unity and collaboration and cooperation and coexistence between the particulars. So, what do we need in this world? Here's what I think. Well, we need a lot of things. We need love. But what do we learn today is the key to love? Oftentimes, what's the key? Especially when different people are different, right? And there are real differences between people. What's the key? The key is a mutual surrender to something greater than them both, right? If we all recognize that there's something greater, that we all come from a greater source, and we have a greater calling that transcends our individual ways of doing it. And I might go about my calling, we all share a calling, right? I might go about it this way, you go about that way, Michal, Gavriel, but at the end of the day, we're standing for the same thing. That's the greatest unifier. That's the greatest way to bring opposites together. And it's the way the mind works. The only way that our minds work in a healthy fashion, Chachma to Bina, to Dat, to then feelings, the way the process works is through this inter-inclusiveness. It's through breaking down the barriers of exclusivity. If each power of the mind said, nope, I'm exclusive, I'm hoarding this resource, this idea that's creative, I'm not letting it go to Bina. And Bina says, I understand it on all the details, I'm not letting it go back to Chachma, I'm not summarizing it. If every power hoarded its own resources, said, I'm not sharing, I'm not going to work with you, you would have disaster. It would be an absolute disaster. The mind would cease to function. It would be a disaster for the mind. Our mind works, we're healthy people, with healthy minds, due to collaboration, due to working the coexistence of opposites. Synthesis with your antithesis. If it's good for the mind, it's good for the body, and it's good for everybody, right? It's good for all of us. What's the key? The key is something greater than us all, to break down the ego, to remind us what's really true and what's really important. All right, so that's it for today for Kabbalah Coffee. Month of Elul, just to summarize, because that was the Bina, and now give me 30 seconds and let me chachmatize it, right? Let me get a summary after all the details. This is the month of Elul. Elul has an energy. The energy of this month is Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li, which is love. Love means I take the first step. And I know that when I take the first step, it's going to call the other person. It's going to have an effect, right? Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li is about bringing together two different parties. Sometimes opposite parties. How do we bring together opposite parties? By recognizing that there's a greater truth than both of us. Humbled before the greater truth, the ego goes away. Once the ego goes away, the barriers come down, and we all get along. I go about it this way, you go about it that way. We're all on the same team. We're all in the God squad. We're all in this together. We're all in the same team. So, the mind works together, Chachma Bina. We need to work together in the same way. Oseh Shalom b'Marav, God who creates peace above. In other words, the peace that's created above through the awareness of truth of God should also be our awareness below to create peace. And now, Sandrine, thank you for reminding me. There's a custom in the month of El to sound the shofar, the shofar. Why? Why do we do it? So number one, for all the shofar blowers, you got to get practice in, right? You can't just go cold in on Rosh Hashanah and expect to have a nice shofar blowing. Number one, that's a pragmatic level. But really, the real reason is, it's the shofar is a wake up call. It's kind of like the it gets the spiritual juices flowing, right? So what I want to do is I want to share it with you. I'm going to sound the shofar, and we'll all listen to the shofar. And listen, if you're wondering how, it's going to be a blast. It's a joke, or not. It's going to be a spiritual blast. So give me a second. Let me get the shofar from my bookcase, which is right a little bit yonder, and I'll be right back. Give me 15 seconds. I'll be right back. All right? Talk amongst yourselves.
The rabbi's background looks like a still life.
Donna.
Yes.
It is. Even after this class, it is still life.
It could be a painting.
I know, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's like a painting. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we're ready to roll.
What a great class. It's so clear,
you.
And it's amazing how we can understand life in a way that is so deep and clear for everyday life. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for the positive feedback and the warm words. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this in a way where maybe do it this way, a little bit higher. What I want to do is then backlight is weird. Okay. Yeah, this should work. All right. I think this could work. Give me a second. We'll get this camera also. Maybe it's gonna work. Maybe it won't. Yeah. Okay. I got my shofar. Now I'm blue. Look at this. Don't worry. It's the light. It's the lighting is getting a little wonky. Okay. This is the shofar. Shofar show good. And hold on. There's a way to do this where everyone will be able to see. We have some people watching right now live on YouTube, so I want to make sure that everyone is able to be part of it. All right, we don't do all the sounds like we do on Rosh Hashanah, but we do like the core sounds. All right, here we go. My pleasure. All right, now I'm no longer blue. I'm no longer in that movie. I forget what it was called. Good.
Everybody's awake in the house.
Oh yeah, well no, they were up already, but yeah, now for sure, By the way, that's one of the reasons for the shofar. It's a wake up call. It's a way to
Wake up those teenagers.
Yes, definitely.
I'm gonna try.
All right, yeah. Sandrine, just play a recording in the house. It's a great, get a shofar app and just play it around. It's a great way to get the kids up. All right, so that's it for today. Tomorrow night, so a few important announcements. Tomorrow night is numerology. By the way, if you haven't taken it yet, but you're intrigued about it, just let me know. We'll hook you up with the last class. And so that's that. Tuesday night is Jewish Course of Why. In a few weeks, this is a very important announcement, breaking news. In a few weeks, we are going to have a dinner that combines at home. It's going to be a virtual program, but which also includes at-home dining. Stay tuned for more information. There's going to be an email, please God, going out tomorrow about it. We have, I may have mentioned this at a class, or maybe I didn't. We have musical entertainment from South Africa. We have our keynote speaker from the United Kingdom, from England. We have food from Atlanta. We have lots of, it's going to be a really amazing program. So look out for an email tomorrow. If you didn't get the email tomorrow, let me know and I'll give you the information. It's going to be pretty amazing, and it'll help support the work that we do with adult education in Atlanta and really around the world. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for being part of this family, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and certainly next week for Kabbalah Coffee. All right. Bye, everyone. See you guys.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shavuot Tov. Bye, everyone.